please state your name for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Sharon Payne.
Ms. Payne, are you employed?
I'm retired.
Who are you retired from?
Chase Bank,
What did you do at Chase Bank?
customer service.
Are you married?
I'm widowed.
What was your husband's name?
Ernest Payne Sr.
Okay. And when did he pass away?
He passed away March 23rd, 2018.
On December 4th of 2020, where were you residing?
3996 East States Place.
And how long had you lived there?
Since 2001.
Did you know an individual by the name of Casey Goodson Jr.?
I sure did. That was my grandson.
Approach the witness, Your Honor.
May I?
I had it right here. Ma'am, I'm going to show you a photograph that's been marked as State's Exhibit Number 1.
Okay.
Do you recognize the individual depicted in that photograph?
I do. That's Casey, my grandson.
I'll publish this to the jury, Your Honor. Show me how. Okay. When was Casey born?
January 30th, 1997.
Okay. And where, on December 4th, 2020, where was Casey living?
With me.
Had Casey lived with you for some period of time?
Off and on, yes.
When Casey was growing up, did he live with you?
He did.
And this was before your husband passed away?
It was, yes.
Did they have a fairly close relationship?
They had a very tight bond.
Did your husband have a nickname for Casey?
Tank.
Tank?
Mm-hmm.
How did he come up with that nickname?
He was fat when he was a baby.
Okay, so he thought he looked like a tank, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Did that nickname stick with Casey?
It did.
Did you use that nickname?
No, I called him CJ.
CJ?
Mm-hmm.
On December 4th, 2020, was Casey working?
He was
Where was he working?
at the Gap warehouse.
And did he have, he was in the warehouse doing labor in the,
Right, exactly, doing labor, packing, different things.
and did he have fairly normal working hours?
No, not at the time when he was murdered.
What were his,
Overruled by this time.
what were his working hours?
He worked from 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they had a special going on till 3 o'clock in the morning because it was during the holidays. So if they worked so many days in a row with a day off, without a day off, they got a bonus. They received a bonus.
So that was an incentive that the employer had,
Exactly.
because it's Christmas season, it's busy season. Okay. And Casey was looking to earn that bonus.
He was.
Objection, relevance. Overruled. Prior to working at the Gap, had Casey been working?
Yes, he went to school to get his CDLs to drive semi-truck, and he was driving semi cross country.
Okay. And when did he stop doing that?
He stopped doing that. He came home for Christmas, and his mother was pregnant, and she had twins early, so he stayed there to help out with that.
Okay, and what year was that?
2020.
2000?
I'm sorry, 2020, it was 2020, yeah, when he first came home. Or it was 2019, because the twins are born in December 2019.
December of 2019? Back then, did you own a car?
I did.
What kind of car did you own?
2011 Nissan Versa.
Okay. And did you drive that car?
I did at times, but Casey drove it more than I did.
Okay. Was that his ride to work? And
Yes, it was, yeah.
did that car have a radio?
A radio?
Yes.
Yes, it did,
Did Casey use it?
all the time.
The radio?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell me about how you locked the car. Did it have a push-button lock?
It did on the inside of the car, but you couldn't, to lock the driver's door, you had to use the key.
Okay. Now the cars are keyless and stuff. I'm still adjusting to that. Wanna
You may.
Now, I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 2 triple V, as in
Okay.
Victor. You recognize what that photograph depicts?
I do.
What does that photograph depict?
It's Casey's keychain with my car key on it and with the door key.
Okay. Which one's your car key?
This one,
Down here, it looks like,
by Mickey Mouse.
I was going to say, it looks like there's a little Mickey Mouse there. It's down by Mickey Mouse? Okay. All right, may I publish this?
You may.
This is the Mickey Mouse right here,
It is.
and right above it is
Key,
the keys to your car, and then
the door key.
the door key. Okay. To your knowledge, did Casey own any firearms?
He did.
Did he own a semi-automatic handgun?
Yes,
Did he often carry that handgun with him?
he took it everywhere he went.
Took it everywhere he went?
Hmm.
Did he have a holster for that gun?
He did have a holster.
Can you describe that holster for us?
It didn't, it just was he slid his gun in. I don't know how to describe it. There wasn't no, like, where you could
Strap it
secure
in,
it in. Yeah, exactly.
like a retaining strap?
Right.
And to your knowledge, did Casey have a permit that allowed him to carry the gun?
He did. He got his CCW license.
Do you remember when he got that?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Now, I want to, again, take you to December 4th, 2020,
Okay.
and which, by the way, it's- we'll do that. Sorry, I kind of got ahead of myself here. I'm going to show you this kind of map here.
Okay.
To recognize what it is depicting.
My neighborhood.
Okay. And if you see they put the names of streets on that, are those all accurate?
They are.
And would you point to where your house was located?
At the end of Estates Place.
Okay,
Oh, no,
that's
I'm sorry,
better.
wrong way.
Yeah.
On Case Road, right here on the corner.
Okay. Would it be that
It would.
highlighted
It
area
would.
there?
It would.
Okay.
Mr. Merkel, what's the,
I'm
Exhibit
sorry,
number?
this is States Exhibit 19. Now, is that all located here in Franklin County,
It is.
in the state of Ohio,
It is.
city of Columbus?
It is.
Approach.
you may,
Gonna show you what we marked as States Exhibit 11C.
Okay.
Do you recognize what that sketch is depicting?
My house.
Okay. And this would be Estates Place,
It is.
and this would be Case Road.
Right.
And in this sketch, it actually depicts two cars parked in front of your house.
That's correct.
When Casey drove your car, where was his normal parking spot?
Right where it is now.
Right here, the upper car there?
Yes.
Now, that car is parked facing the wrong way, is that correct?
It is.
And was that the way it was generally parked?
He always parked that way because right across the street there is a fire hydrant. So he'd just come down the street and pull up,
Pull to the left?
pull in.
Then when he'd leave, he could go down Case Road?
Exactly.
Didn't have to turn around
No.
and all that stuff? Show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 11A.
Okay.
You recognize what that sketch depicts?
It's my house.
Okay, so that's just a larger
Larger picture, yeah.
picture of it? Mm-hmm. And show us what part of the house is the inside.
What different rooms are?
Well, yeah.
Okay,
What room is that?
this is the living room.
Okay,
This is where you came in the side door. This was the kitchen. This was my back bedroom that Janae was staying in. This was my son's bedroom that he was in, and that's my room.
okay. And this was,
The porch,
okay, this is the front door.
the front door.
Back on December 4th, did you use the front door frequently?
No, because the weather would swell and it'd be hard to open. You'd have to like mess with it for a long time to get it to pop open. So we came in the back door, side door.
So the normal way to come in
Was this way.
was through the side door?
It was.
Now, this is a little, like stoop or porch.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, was there an awning over it?
There was.
Okay. And this depicts, this would be what in the kitchen?
The stove and the refrigerator.
Okay, and then this was the kitchen table?
That's where the table was, yes.
Then these are the sinks, I assume?
Right, correct.
Bathroom?
Bathroom,
One bathroom?
one bathroom.
Back on December 4th, where was Casey sleeping?
Downstairs in the basement. I had a
Yeah.
recreation room he slept in.
How did he get to the basement? Where are the steps?
Right across from where you go in the door, you go down the steps.
Okay, were those steps open or was there a door?
There was a door.
Okay. Now, this door, it's depicted here at a 90-degree angle. Is that normally how far it opened, or did it open further?
I would say that was normally how far it opened.
Coach Sharon.
You may.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 25A.
Okay.
And you recognize that as a smaller version of State's Exhibit 11A.
I do.
Okay. Let's go ahead and mark on this. You would you mark, put an LR in the living room and put your initials in your bedroom, and Ernest and
Janae.
Janae. Okay, and then just put a K in there. That working, the pen?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, let's,
Bathroom?
well, I
Okay.
think that's all right. Maybe just put porch out here, or okay. Okay. I'm just gonna leave that up.
Okay.
Um, let's go to December 4th, 2020. Did you see Casey that morning?
I did.
Tell me about that.
Well, he usually sleeps in till like 12 or 1 to get up and get ready to go to work because he was working long hours. But he was up early that morning. And I was going into the kitchen. He was coming past the opposite way.
About what time was this?
Oh, it was early. I can't exactly remember. Probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock, somewhere around there. And I asked him what he was doing up so early because he was never up that early. And he said, I got a dentist appointment, remember?
Not for the truth of the matter, sir.
Overruled.
And he said, I have a dentist appointment. I said, oh, that's right, I forgot. And he went on his way to the bathroom, and I was going downstairs.
Okay. Did you see him again?
No. Oh, when he said goodbye at the door when he was leaving.
He did say goodbye to you. What?
Mm-hmm.
Where were you then?
I was in the kitchen.
Okay. And he told you he was leaving, and he
Yeah.
left.
Right. He told me he'd see me when he got back.
So tell us what you did that morning after Casey left.
I went downstairs to the laundry room. I sorted clothes, started a load of clothes, come upstairs. My granddaughter, which at the time I believe was 4, and my great-granddaughter that was 3, and I made them oatmeal for breakfast and put them to the table. Then I went over and made coffee,
Okay.
got a cup of coffee and went to my bedroom.
Okay. So you were in your bedroom.
I was.
Did anybody come into your bedroom?
Not at the, my grandson and my granddaughter was already in the bedroom. My granddaughter was doing schoolwork on her computer and my grandson was on a phone.
Now, this your grandson, what was his name?
His name was Daryl Mathis Jr. It was Casey's, I believe at the time, 5-year-old brother.
Okay. And Daryl didn't live with you, is that right?
No, he didn't. He lived with his
How
mother.
did Daryl get to the house?
His mother dropped him off. He wasn't feeling well, and she had to go to work, so she brought him to us.
Okay. So did you see Casey's mother that morning too?
I saw her outside the door. She didn't come in the house.
Okay. So you and she didn't really speak that morning?
We did on the phone.
Okay. To make arrangements?
Right.
For her to drop Daryl off, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're in the bedroom. Is Ernest at home?
My son?
Yes.
Yes, he was.
Okay. Did you have any interaction with Ernest that morning?
I did. We heard glass breaking like a loud
Well,
noise.
let's go
Okay.
before that.
No. Oh, yes, we did. I'm sorry. His daughter's arm was bleeding. She picked a scab or something. And
What's his daughter's name?
Tiana.
Tiana? Mm-hmm. She lived there as well, is that right?
Well, she stayed there at times.
Okay.
And I picked her up and took her to him.
Okay. So she had a cut or a,
Yeah, blood was running down her arm.
yeah, her arm was bleeding.
Right.
And so you took her to Dad and said,
Right.
Ernest, you need to attend to your daughter.
Right.
Okay. And tell us what next occurred, or after you took Tiana to Ernest.
I went back in my bedroom and sat down,
Okay.
and
What were you doing?
I was watching TV,
Okay.
and I heard a boom, boom.
Are you in your bedroom?
I'm in
alone?
my bedroom, sitting on my bed by my nightstand, drinking coffee.
Okay, you had coffee. Were any of the kids in your room?
Daryl was in the room, and Ariana, that's my son Ernest's oldest, well, not oldest daughter, but she was, I think, 10 at the time, 11.
So they were both in the room.
They were in there with me, yes.
Okay. Tell us what happened.
I was sitting there drinking my coffee, and I heard a lot of boom, boom, boom. I didn't know it was a gun at the time, just loud bangs, like one after another.
And you didn't know what that was?
I didn't, but then I heard glass break about the same time, and it sounded like a big chandelier falling to the ground.
Okay.
And I said, what was that? And I got up.
Right. Let me stop you.
Okay.
When you say, before hearing the glass break, you heard boom, 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 which you didn't at the
Recognize
time
as a gun,
know what
yeah.
those sounds were.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many you heard?
I don't. I'm sorry. I know it was more than 3 because it kept going.
Okay, so more than 3.
Right.
That's pretty much the best you can tell us?
That's about, yeah.
Okay. And then you heard the crashing.
Yeah, about the same time. I mean, right, like I heard the gunshots first, and then I heard the glass.
Okay. And what happened next?
I got up to go see what was going on, and my son was coming down the hall. His bedroom was next to mine, and I said, "What was that?" And he said, "I think they shot CJ." And I said, "Who?" And I don't even remember him answering. If he did,
How about the kids? Were the kids in the room?
my great granddaughter, the one that was 3 at the time, come running down the hall. 2 boys in my bedroom, scared to death. And I picked her up because I didn't know what was going on either. I picked her up and I put her on my bed and I told her, stay there, do not get off the bed.
Okay. When you say came down the hall, from
the
what
kitchen.
part of that? From the kitchen?
Mhm. She was the one, they were eating.
Was it just one eating at
One eating at the time because I had taken the other little girl to her dad with her bloody arm.
And was this before or after you spoke with Ernest?
It was around the same time.
All of that's happening?
Yeah, all
together.
it, like in, yeah, how it was.
So you take your great-granddaughter, and you say you placed her on the bed?
On my bed.
Okay. What did you do then?
I went into the living room by the doorway that is by my bedroom, and Ernest was in there, and he was sitting on the floor holding his daughter, and I didn't hear any, I just didn't hear anything.
Okay.
And he grabbed me by my arm and he said, Mom, get down before they shoot you, get down before they shoot you. But I wanted to see where CJ was, so I snatched away from him, and I went down the side of the wall, and from the living room, there's a door that goes into the kitchen. So I stood like this and peeked around, and I saw Casey laying on the floor.
Did you see anybody else in the room?
I did not see anybody, no. I just saw, I was focused on him. And when I saw him, I was just looking down at him.
Okay. All right, let's take this, this State's Exhibit 25A and show us where, kind of draw a line from
My bedroom down?
of your route, where you went. And put an X there. Now, mark in there, where was approximately, where was Ernest?
But his initials are an X.
Yeah. Okay. And he's sitting on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's not right against the wall because there's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
that was stacked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, where did you see CJ?
Right here on the other side of the door.
Okay, draw, just,
A stick figure or something.
yeah,
Oh, he was right here.
okay.
Actually, he was a little bit further up because his head was closer to the table.
Okay, well, let's, so you're saying like up, maybe like around in here?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Okay. Connor, may I publish this?
Yes, you may.
Now, you saw CJ.
I did.
Was he, and he's laying on the floor,
He was laying on the floor, face down.
face down?
Mm-hmm.
Could you see his hands?
I did see his hands
Where were they?
like this, up over his shoulders. Yes.
Okay,
And his face was turned towards the refrigerator.
okay. Could you see any injuries?
I saw bullet holes in his back, 2 of them.
You saw 2 bullet holes in his back?
I did.
Okay. Did you see anybody else at that point?
I didn't.
Okay. Um, What did you do then?
I ran to my room and called 911.
Your Honor, can we hook up? I'm gonna play for you a recording that's marked as State's Exhibit 18. And let's just. Peter went to sleep here. Let's just play it.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
39.
You recognize the voice on that tape recording?
Yes, I do. It's me.
Okay.
56 Estates Place.
And what's the emergency?
My grandson just got shot in the back when he came in the house, and I don't know if he's okay because there's still out there.
I'm sorry, what just happened?
My grandson just got shot
Okay, where did this happen?
at my house. He lives there
Okay.
with me.
So who shot him?
I don't know. I just
Okay.
heard the gunshots, and I would get up, and he's laying in the door.
Okay. And nobody saw anything prior to this?
No, he went to the dentist or somewhere and came home, and all I know has a bunch of gunfire. He's not a bad kid. He don't have a police record. He works. I don't know what happened.
Okay, is there anybody in the house that can tell you who shot him?
No, they don't know. They were threatening everybody in the house. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
That's okay. We've got help headed that way. Did they say if anybody was outside arguing with him or anything?
Pardon me?
Is he breathing?
I don't know. They won't let me in the kitchen by him.
Okay. Did he say if he had, like, any disputes with anybody?
No, not that I know of. I'm not aware of anything.
Okay, what's your name and telephone number, ma'am?
Sharon Payne,
Okay.
614-597-5570.
Do you know if he was dropped off by anyone?
No, he went to the dentist or somewhere. He was driving my car. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on.
All right. Well, the
There's
officers
a
will be
black car
that
out
way.
here waiting.
I'm going to go ahead and get the medics started that way, okay?
That's the damn police. Hold on.
There.
Okay,
Okay,
that's SWAT.
ma'am?
That's the police.
Yeah, the police are there, and they've got the medics too, okay?
Why did you stop?
Grab a collar for your dog. Leave everybody out of the house.
Don't have a collar.
Okay, everyone out of the house. Grab your kids.
Was that the 911 call?
It is.
Okay. You can hear in the background at the end, someone saying, everyone out of the house.
It was one of the police officers.
Okay. So, immediately after the shooting, did anyone ask you who Casey was?
No.
Did anyone mention a gun or ask you why someone was coming into the house with a gun?
Never asked me anything. Just told me to get out of the house.
Okay. Were they fairly forceful?
Yes, they were.
Were the officers that ordered you out of the house, were they wearing uniforms like Columbus police officers,
They had on black.
black, is what you call? Did they have weapons?
Yes.
I may have. Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Any questions on behalf of the defense?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Ms. Payne.
Hi.
My name's Stephen Older. I represent Mr. Meade, and I think we've met before, haven't
We have. We have.
Let's talk about December the 4th of 2020.
Okay.
We'll start there, and it sounds like at the time of the shooting that you were in your bedroom watching TV, and I think it was Daryl is on his phone, and I believe is it Ariana was doing it?
Ariana, yes.
And so there was quite a bit of activity in your bedroom at that time. And from your testimony, you didn't see the shooting, correct?
I did not see the shooting.
You did hear the loud commotion, right?
I did.
And I think you described on direct examination, it sounded like a chandelier crashing, right?
Yes.
All right. And after you heard that sound that was a chandelier crashing, you came out of your bedroom, right?
I did.
And I think the route that you described is that you then immediately were in the living room. Is that right?
Right, because the living room door is right by my bedroom
It's
door.
connected to your bedroom, right?
Yes.
Bedroom opens into the living room, correct?
No, the bedroom opens into the hall, but the living room door is right there. Like it's,
And then I think at that point you were taking steps towards the kitchen,
I was.
and then you intercepted, is it Leah? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, Leah. She came running down the hall, and I picked her up and took her in my room.
She was the one who was in the kitchen eating breakfast, right?
She was.
So you pick up Leah, you put her in your bedroom, put her on the bed, tell her to stay there,
I
right?
did.
And then you actually came back out into the living room area, right?
I did.
At that time, and I think probably before that, you saw Ernest sitting on the floor, right?
Ernest, yes. Yes.
And I think his daughter was in his arms at that point, correct?
Correct.
He was dealing with her wound or her bloody arm that she had.
Right.
Now, I think that you said that that Ernest tried to stop you from going towards the kitchen, but you just continued on, right?
Right. He grabbed my arm and told me, don't, because I get shot, and I snatched away from him.
So you just continued on to towards the kitchen, and there's a doorway that connects the living room with the kitchen, isn't there?
There is, yes.
And that's what you were trying to get to, is the doorway to see what was going on in the kitchen.
Correct.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you said that when you got to the kitchen, you saw your grandson Casey was face down on the floor, right?
I did.
You didn't see anyone else in the kitchen?
I did not.
Okay. And I think the 911 call that we just listened to, you told the 911 operator that Casey, he was laying in the door. Isn't that right?
On the floor. Yes.
But near the door, right?
I don't know what I said.
And you weren't able to see his feet. Is that true?
I didn't notice his feet because I was looking at his upper body.
Well, yeah, that's right. You were focused on his upper torso, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't see his feet. Isn't that right?
No, I didn't.
His head was turned towards the refrigerator, right?
It was.
And when you talked to, you've been interviewed several times in this case, right?
I have been.
One of the people that interviewed you was a Detective Mounts, and isn't it true that you told Detective Mounts that Casey's body was on the floor by the back door? Didn't you tell him that?
Probably that's where it was.
Now, on direct examination, Mr. Merkel asked you a question about CCW. You remember that?
I do.
And Casey did own guns, correct?
He did.
And he actually owned more than just one semi-automatic pistol. Isn't that true?
He did.
Matter of fact, he owned 2 pistols, didn't he?
I believe so. I believe it was 2.
And he also owned an AR-15 rifle, didn't he?
You may. Why don't you re-ask the question?
Ms. Payne, I think I asked you the question about Casey owning firearms. Do you remember that?
I do.
And I believe on direct examination, you said that Casey owned a semi-automatic pistol, didn't you?
Yes.
And in fact, he owned 2 semi-automatic pistols, didn't he?
I don't know that much about guns, but he did have two pistols.
2 handguns.
Yes.
He also had an AR-15 rifle, didn't
He had a rifle.
he? And when he was home, he would keep these weapons in the basement where his living space was, correct?
Right, that's correct.
Now, you also talked about on direct examination that Casey had a CCW permit, right?
He did.
We're unsure as far as when he got the CCW permit, but you do know that he did have a CCW permit.
I know that, yes.
And he also took some classes in order to get a CCW permit, didn't he?
He did.
And he studied for those classes to get his CCW permit, right?
Yes.
And isn't it true that the CCW course that he took and the self-study that he did taught him about gun safety, didn't it?
I would imagine, yes.
And that's kind of logical as far as what the reason for taking courses in CCW permit holding, right?
Yes.
That it would teach you about being a responsible gun owner, right?
Yes.
And he did get his CCW permit, and that was from the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, I
It
believe.
was.
And that entitled him to carry a concealed weapon, correct?
It did.
And you were interviewed by the FBI about this shooting that you testified about, right?
Right.
And that was at the U.S. Attorney's Office, wasn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Probably a few years ago, right?
It was.
So, but nonetheless, you do remember the interview.
I do.
right? And isn't it true that you told the FBI that after...
Well, I don't even know what the question is. Isn't it true you told the FBI, then you objected? Basis? Yes? overruled. You can finish the question.
I think we're at the FBI interview, right?
Yes.
All right. And at the FBI interview, it was a lengthy interview, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't
It was
hear.
a lengthy interview. You were
It
there for a
was.
while. All
A
right.
long time.
And isn't it true that during that interview with the FBI, that you told them that after Casey Goodson got a CCW permit, that he discharged one of the pistols inside your house?
Yes, he did.
And when he shot the gun inside your house, he didn't think it was loaded. Isn't that true?
That's correct.
And I believe that the discharge occurred in your kitchen, didn't it?
It went through the microwave, the bullet.
And so the weapon that was discharged, the bullet lodged into the microwave, right?
Did.
And you were present,
Yes,
and Ernest was present,
I believe so.
and anyone else present in the kitchen when this happened?
I'm not sure.
And the kitchen's, it was a pretty small area, wasn't
It's
it?
small.
And I would assume that that was a pretty loud noise, right?
It was loud.
And scary situation for you, wasn't it?
It did startle me.
Now, and again, this happened, you told the FBI this happened after.
Do you guys want to approach? That objection will be sustained.
Now, on the prior time that we were together, Ms. Payne, do you remember I showed you a picture of your grandson?
I do.
And may I approach witness, Your Honor?
You may. Note the objection.
That's all I wanted to make sure.
May I approach?
You may. At least that wasn't my crutch.
That was loud, too, wasn't
It was.
it? Sorry.
That's okay.
Ms. Payne, I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as Defendant's Exhibit E. And take a look at that and tell me when you're ready.
I see it.
Is that the picture I showed to you the first time we were together?
It is.
And who is depicted in that picture? Ms.
My,
Payne?
my grandson, Casey Goodson.
You would agree that he's pointing a gun?
He is.
And you would agree that he was in a car when this happened?
He was.
Because you can see the headrest?
But yeah,
And do you know who would be to his right when the gun was pointed?
I'm not sure. I imagine it was one of his sisters.
And he was right-handed, wasn't
Yes.
he? And do you know who was taking the picture?
One of his sisters.
So you would agree that in this picture that's captured in Defendant's Exhibit E, that Mr. Goodson's pointing a gun inside of a car at somebody, correct?
I don't believe he was pointing it to be malicious. I believe he was goofing off.
Goofing off, okay. But you would agree he was pointing a gun at,
He was pointing a gun, yes.
and you've actually ridden in the car. May I have display the exhibit?
Note the objection.
And that's the picture that you've identified as Casey pointing a gun at somebody who's taking a picture of him, right?
Yes,
Inside a car.
yes.
You have that marked as an exhibit.
E, yes.
You take that.
And isn't it true that you've ridden in the car with Casey before?
I have.
And I think you testified that he frequently carried a gun.
He always carried a gun.
Always carried a gun. And you've actually been in the car with him when the gun was out in plain view on the console, correct?
I have,
And you've seen that, right?
I have.
And it was in your car,
It was in my car.
Nissan Versa?
Yes.
Have a moment, Sharon?
Okay.
Nothing further.
Any redirect?
Ms. Payne,
Yes.
you weren't present when this,
No, I wasn't.
does this appear to be a posed
It is.
photograph?
Yes.
Did you have concerns about Casey carrying a gun all the time?
I did.
Did you express those concerns to him?
I did.
What were those concerns?
I was concerned that the police would stop him like they do a lot of,
Overruled. She can answer.
like they do a lot of black citizens. And I told him they'll stop you, they'll find a reason to stop you and something bad might happen. And he said, no, it won't, Grandma, because I got my CCW, and if they stop me, I'll just put my hands up and say, I have my CCW.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions as a result? All right, you can step down. Thank you.